Hi there. I'm going to talk to you about the way in which the Paris Peace Conferences were organised. Now you'll know about the big three, or the big four if we include Italy. You'll know that there were 32 countries involved in total. You'll know that there was no Germany, no Austria, no Hungary, no Russia. But you might not know too much more than that. And I think it would help you if you did know more. For one thing, there has been at least one past question to my knowledge that asks about the organisation of the treaties. But I think as well, the more context I think we have, I think the better our understanding is going to be. So let's see if I can fill in some of the spaces for you. First of all, why was it in Paris of all places? I say that because Paris is the place where tension and emotion is at its highest. Why not hold it somewhere else? Well, Geneva was mooted as the best place to hold the conference. But for some reason, I don't know what it was, the Americans were worried about security. So Paris it was. So here we are in Paris. We have 32 countries represented, and yet we talk about the big three, the big four so much. Well, let me give you a little insight as to why. And you'll forgive me, I'm going to lean forward and read from my computer because this is a gem and I want you to get it in its entirety. What I'm going to read to you is how an American delegate described the opening procedures. I'm going to read for you. An American delegate put it well when he described the opening statements of the Polish and Czech delegations. The head of the Polish delegation began at 11 o'clock in the morning and could reach 1919 and the pressing problems of the moment only as late as 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The delegate for Czechoslovakia began a century earlier and finished an hour later. That's what we're told by the American delegate. And you might want to think about that the next time you're sitting in a school assembly and thinking, is this ever going to end? So, that's why the big four left Versailles and headed to the French Foreign Office, and they held their meetings there, in the French Foreign Office in the centre of Paris somewhere, not sure where it is. So we talk about the big four. You might read about the big five. That would include Japan. Have I said who the big four includes? Britain, France, America and Italy. The big five would include Japan. But they very quickly got to the point where, well, hang on, the Japanese don't have their Prime Minister representing them. So, we don't feel like meeting with someone lower than us. So that's how we get the big four. You might also read about the Committee of 10 or the Big 10. This was when all five were meeting and they met with their foreign secretaries. But again, they quickly came to realise that, we're going to get through this a lot more quickly if it's just the leaders. So we end with the big four. But Orlando is often popping off. He's getting annoyed by the way things are going, and eventually he leaves altogether. So essentially, we have the big three making the big decisions. But they're not on their own making those decisions. They have an army of helpers behind them. There are 52 commissions in total, looking at the details like reparations, demilitarization, border lines and what have you. They're the experts in their different areas, and they're writing reports, feeding it to their leaders who will make the overall political decisions. So I hope you find that useful. But there's something else to add to this. The leaders weren't always there either. They had countries to run. Clemenceau could pop round the corner and hold a government meeting. Lloyd George could get on a boat and get back to London and hold a meeting. President Wilson had to take a month off in order to go back to America and deal with urgent business, and then come back to Paris. Clemenceau put a sick note in at one point, but it was a good sick note. He'd been shot, and so he missed a few meetings because of that. So when we look at the Paris conference, the Paris Peace Conference, and we're thinking about the decisions that were being made, they were being made in traumatic circumstances, in very emotional circumstances. They were made with the leaders distracted by domestic issues. And we need to consider all of that, I think, when we're looking at whether those treaties were effective or not. Where do we place blame? We need to think about that context. So I hope you found that useful. Cheers.